Ring, ring. May I speak to Angie Moon of Coventry, England?
That's me. Hello. Hi, Emily. How are you?
Wonderful, Angie. It's so great to see you again.
Likewise.
Thanks for picking up.
My pleasure.
I've been looking forward to recording this podcast for a couple of weeks now, and I want to thank Angie Moon, rock historian, writer, blogger, for coming back on the Lipstick Pickup podcast because I want to talk to her about a subject that I feel that she is the most qualified person to talk to me about, and that is the title of this podcast is going to be called The Sitar Goes Electric. And Angie is going to help me explain what that's all about because she knows a lot about it. And I want to remind anybody who's listening that Angie was on the podcast a few weeks ago to discuss her book. It's a true crime book. Do you have it handy? Do you have a copy handy?
I can run off and get one. It's like right there.
Yeah, hop to it. Because we're going to talk about style today.
Oh my God. And that book is very stylish looking. There's a lot of thought always put into the aesthetic of everything I do. Yes. Here it is. Here we go. So let me unveil the book.
Yes, bring it out.
Crime of the Century, Classic Rock and True Crime by me, Angie Moon. It's purple. I match my book.
It's one of my favorite colors, purple.
And there's the little flying V.
Yes.
And you got to talk about your sitar.
Yeah, we're going to talk about flying Vs later. I love the book. Purple is one of my favorite colors, and it has so much symbology, purple. And it looks beautiful on you, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's my favorite color. I'm sure everybody can tell it's like probably part of my personality.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite colors, too. I was told when I was quite young that purple was flattering to my eye color and everything else. And so when I've bought cocktail dresses and things like that, I toward to gravitate toward purple. So, and any version of it, deep purple, lavender, lilac. Do you have a favorite purple?
All of them. I just love every purple. Like, I'm like, oh God. I think I made a video once on my Instagram that was just all my purple stuff in one video.
I love it. I love it. The reason why I had Angie on my podcast a few weeks ago is that in the winter, maybe late spring, I was doing research on sitar, and I stumbled, thanks to AI. AI might be the devil, but they do link things when they source things. And it was an AI response that I got to something. I didn't go for it exactly. It just popped up on my screen. And there was a link. And it was the first time, for some reason, that I had read a blog post that you published October 1st, 2017. The title of that blog post was Beyond the Sitar, Indian Influences in Classic Rock. So I click on this link and it is full of lots of the research that I've come up with since I started doing this in 2020. And then a bunch of stuff that I didn't even know about. And I think I reached out to you on Instagram and I said, you're my soulmate. You've done, and I told you when we made our first recording that you're probably the only person who could possibly understand how ubiquitous this instrument, both of them, the real sitar and electric sitar, ended up being in popular music because you wrote an incredible blog post about it. And when I published this episode, I'll put it in the links. Anybody who wants to know about the evolution of Indian influences in classic rock needs to read Angie's blog post. And one thing I love about that post, I went to reread it the other day, is that you've got all the links in there to Spotify and YouTube. So if you're reading it, you can listen. And I appreciate the work that you did on that. So
thank you so much. That's something that I like whenever I write, I'm always looking, like I write things that I wish I could find in other books, and I write for basically kind of myself, but I think other people probably have the same thought process. Yes. Whenever I read books about classic rock, I'm always like, whenever they reference a song, I'm like, I want to hear that song. So I incorporated that sort of, methodology in my writing. Yeah. And something else like when I was a kid and I listened to the oldie station with my dad always, or the top 40 hit station, whatever radio station that plays music with my dad was always frustrated when he was like, how come they don't always tell us the songs that they're playing? And I always made a point whenever I had my radio show to tell you what song I was playing. So you didn't miss a thing. I made sure to have the whole track listing on my Facebook. So that way everybody can access it. And, you know, you're never left wondering. I don't like gatekeeping, as, you know, young people on TikTok like to say. I don't gatekeep it. I want to just share the information with everyone and have it out there. That India music post, oh my God, that was so long ago. That was back in 2017. So I'm trying to think of where I was then. I was a newlywed at that time when I was writing that post. I had just come back from my honeymoon in Australia, so that was a long time ago.
There's so much good stuff in there, and everybody needs to read it, but that's why I wanted to have Angie Moon back on. We discussed a bunch of things on the first podcast that you and I recorded, but I asked you, I want you to come back and help me re-record an episode that I did called The Sitar Electric. Any decent podcast gets off to a rocky start, and mine did too. I did 50 episodes and I had to unpublish them because for many reasons, some of them quality standards, and I wanted to redo one. You told me, you wrote in the comments on that blog post that it was one of the most fun things that you'd worked on, and my episode, The Sitar Electric, was also one of the most fun things I worked on. So I'm glad I get to redo it with you. So it's really all about everything. It's not just about music. It's about style and culture. And another word I probably never heard, but didn't really think about until I read Angie's writings, was the word endomania. You are the one who brought that one into my lexicon.
Nice.
I don't know why it's that word had sort of escaped me, but I know exactly what it is. And so that's what we're going to talk about. But before we get into that, I've got some business because I want to ask Angie about her trip to Greece. When we recorded, you were about to go to Greece, and I got to watch you go to Greece on Instagram. And now I want to hear about Greece because it was Technicolor.
Yes, it's absolutely beautiful there. So I've been to Greece a couple of times before that. So the first time I went, my brother wanted to do a trip to Turkey because he had a Turkish best friend in secondary school and he heard like wonderful things about Turkey. My brother really likes meat. Well, I'm the polar opposite. I'm a vegan. And I decided, okay, I need to get out of the house. I was chronically ill and I was like, I need to get out of the house. And one thing that I'll always make time for is traveling. So I decided to join my family, and I hadn't seen them in a while because of the pandemic. So we went to Turkey together, and then afterwards we went on a side trip to Athens, and I absolutely adored the food in Greece. So there was this amazing dessert called loukoumades, and they had a vegan version of it, and they served it like it was like little donut holes or something like that with chocolate inside, and then they were served with vegan ice cream. It was so good. Chocolate ice cream, of course, is what I get because chocolate's my favorite flavor.
Are you vegan?
Yes, I've been vegan since I was 22, and then vegetarian since I was 15. So a long, long time.
Yeah.
It's a big part of my life, even though it's kind of in the background a lot of the time. But yeah, it's a pretty big part of my life. It's fair to say. And then
I also love the food of Greece too, and it's extremely healthy for you. And if you are vegan, I'm not. I'm an omnivore that doesn't eat much meat. But if you are vegan, it's a wonderful appetite because all the nuts and all, it's everything.
Oh my God, like I couldn't get over the freshness of the food. So the other time I went to Greece, I went to Crete and Santorini on a cruise. But I find that when you're on a cruise, you don't get the full enjoyment of everything. And the bulk of the tourists in Santorini, which is where I went, were cruise ship passengers. So it was like really crowded in certain parts of the day. So like right in the afternoon, it was crowded. But then later, it wasn't quite dead or anything. There were still a lot of tourists, but it wasn't as packed as I thought it would be. Like, I saw so many reports of, oh, Santorini's going to be packed. It's going to be wall-to-wall full of people. And I remember that on the cruise ship. And really, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, like the most crowded place I'd ever traveled to was Istanbul. And that was on the same trip as the first time I went to Greece. But yeah, like in Santorini, I couldn't get over how amazing the food was. Like when I was on the cruise, I didn't really get to eat much of the local food in port. And that was a big mistake because the local food is really something you miss out on when you go on a cruise. And that's why I prefer not to go on a cruise. Although I do like cruises because there is entertainment, there's buffets,
it's low
pools.
Impact travel.
Yeah, like it was great when I was chronically ill. It was amazing because I would just get plain flare-ups and I could just go back to my room. Didn't have to worry too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I couldn't get over how fresh the produce was in Santorini. Like, oh my God, the vegetables taste great. Like here in the UK, they do not taste that good compared to in Greece. Like Greece and the Canary Islands, oh my God, the produce was so fresh. I just loved it. Absolutely love Spain. Absolutely love Greece. I think Greece has definitely one of the best cuisines in all of Europe. I think I might get a lot of hate for this, but I think French food is quite overrated. But like, and I would say the only two good cuisines in Europe, in my opinion, are Greek and Italian food. That's it. I couldn't name any other cuisines in Europe that are very good.
I'm going to be a lover of that stance because although I went to Paris once, and the reason why I like Italian and Greek food is its humility. It's very simple, it's just so wholesome. And it's very ingredient driven, and because it's only a handful of ingredients, and I don't know what all you ate, but I love Greek food. And there was a massive Greek and Lebanese population in Jackson, Mississippi when I was growing up. And they owned all the diners, which is a custom in America. And they taught us how to eat. When I talked to people about Jackson, Mississippi, I said, I grew up eating very good food, and it was the Greeks who taught us to eat in Jackson, Mississippi. Mississippi has a seafood sauce called comeback sauce, and it's a legend in Mississippi, and it started in a Greek diner.
Wow.
And
That's
it's
really
very
cool.
Greek. Okay, tell me about the things that you did all day when you were in
Okay,
Greece.
so a lot of it was very active. Like my husband was like, "No, we are going to go hiking and we're going to go hike around the island." And I'm like, "Okay." Like that was the
Was
thing I
it
couldn't
hot
do.
right now? Was
It
it?
was quite hot, but it
Yeah.
was not as bad as Japan. Japan was just insanely hot, insanely humid. I felt like I was going to die all the time. I swear half the money I spent in Japan was on matcha, iced matcha. I was drinking so much iced matcha. But yeah, in Greece, but like the great thing about Japan was it made it manageable was all the vending machines everywhere. Like, and the vending machines kept those drinks really cold. So it was
Yeah.
so refreshing. But like Greece, oh my God, I couldn't get over how fresh the food was. I think it was like the freshest food I've ever had, like
Wow.
fresher than anywhere else. And I went hiking, I went to the beach. I was like, oh, and I gotta have my beach day. I gotta have multiple beach days, and I made sure of that. Some of those days it was just so wavy that I was like, oh, well, I'm getting knocked over. My hair got all curly, and I was like, don't take pictures of me because I do not like when my hair isn't
Yeah.
like I can't perfectly straighten it, but I straighten it as much as I can. There's a bit of a volume and wave to it, but that's just how it is. That's my
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah.
But like, oh my God. So the absolute highlight of Santorini is the hike from Fira to Ia. That was incredible. But I
How
could
many
not do it
miles is that?
I want to say like 6 miles, I want to say. My
Okay.
brother did did that hike both ways, even going up and down those little stairs to get from the cruise ship port all the way up to the Fira, the town. He did all of that. My brother was an absolute beast. He did that all in one day. Like for the cruise, I was like, okay, you're crazy because I only did the one way, and I'm like, I was exhausted. I was like, oh, and I need to get some ice cream. I need some food. I was like carrying around water. My brother did without water, which was insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like beautiful, like all the churches with the blue domes. Those are
Yeah.
everywhere. Like, yeah, when I made sure to get a new phone right before that trip because I was like, I need to get these pictures looking beautiful. The sunset was absolutely a highlight. It was beautiful. Oh my God, I love the windmills. Like, I made sure to get to the castle like 1 hour before the sunset. We were just sitting there, just, waiting and waiting. And then it's like, oh yeah, the sunset's here. And I felt like the SpongeBob I felt like that was just playing in my head while on the build up to the sunset. Yeah, like
Wow.
Santorini was absolutely great, but my husband would say the most overrated part was Ia, the place with the windmills and the domes, like the very touristy part. He was like, it didn't make sense to stay there because you'd always just have tourists in your face and like all over around surrounding your accommodation. Like
Yeah.
there were queues to stand and take a picture in certain places,
Mm-hmm.
and like hotel guests would be so annoyed at all of us queuing.
Yeah.
But the queues aren't so bad when you go in the evening. It's interesting. Definitely.
I'm interested in when you talk about the cruise ship thing because I went to San Juan, Puerto Rico, and my husband and I stayed in Old Town San Juan, and it was charming. It was like I've never been to South America, but I felt like I was in Argentina or something. It was, but I'm technically in the United States, or you know.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, a whole nother reality existed on the other side of Old San Juan, which is where the cruise ships come in. And they come in to shop at American stores.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, they always recommend the same stores on the cruise ship. Like, go to the Del Sol, go to Diamonds International, go to this jewelry store, that jewelry store. It's the same thing. It's kind of like a racket. It almost feels like a money go round on that cruise ship.
It's an interesting culture, and I've been on a handful of cruises in my life, and I went on a outlaw country cruise a couple of years ago, and
Oh,
that
that
was
sounds
an
so
experience.
awesome.
It was very interesting. And my dad took us on a cruise to the Bahamas, and he said, "This is nothing more than a floating trough." He didn't like, how my dad, the bird watcher, it wasn't for
Hmm.
him, but I'm sure that we went to the Bahamas, and he liked to do everything once, and but I saw Alaska by cruise ship, and it's really the best
Same.
way to see. You've been to Alaska on a
Yeah,
cruise?
I went on a cruise. That was actually where I really first like ran into my chronic illness for real.
Yeah,
So there's a whole story about that. So I was 13 years old. We were all on this cruise, and like the glacier, because I saw the news of the glacier flood in Alaska, and I was like, I was there. I was at that glacier, and it was a lot icier then. Like I went in June, and we needed coats to go in
yeah,
June.
yeah. I
Now
went in
you don't.
August.
It's
Yeah,
insane. But anyway, when I went to Alaska, we went on an excursion, and it was in a semi-submersible, so not quite a submarine, but it was still like, you got to see the creatures underneath the water. I get on,
wow.
and then I suddenly got like I got my period, and I was in immense pain, and I spent half that excursion in the toilet with a rag between my legs, just moaning and crying the
Oh.
entire time. So that was like the first moment where I was like, there is something wrong with me, and I want a hysterectomy. Get me a hysterectomy. So I was only 13 years old, and 15 years later, I finally got a hysterectomy.
Well, I'm sorry you had that experience, and I'm glad to know more about your chronic illness that you've discussed. And one thing I enjoyed about your pictures of Greece is that you were talking about how much fun you were having feeling better.
Oh my God. It was like night and day because I remember the first time I went to Santorini, I was stuck on the little tour bus with my parents because I couldn't hike, I couldn't walk, I could not keep up with my brother,
Oh,
especially with his pace, and I was like I was in too much pain that like the pain could strike at any moment, and it got worse over time, and like I'd be stuck in bed. And that's why I know a lot about classic rock, is because I was chronically ill with nothing to do except read about classic rock and research, and I wrote all this while chronically ill.
yes, that is in many ways an age-old story about people who do things, who learn to do things because of infirmaries or conditions that they were outside their control, and they poured, what they could into something else. I'm sorry to hear that you went through that, but I enjoyed the book.
Yeah, it's quite sad, but you know what? At the same time, I don't feel sorry for myself because I got through it, and I think it's just a testament to my strength, which sometimes I underestimate myself there. Like, oh my God, I was able to handle that. You mean I
Yeah.
was able to handle being just all the traumatic stuff that happened when I was a teenager? I was able to handle that. I was able to get through that. That's kind of crazy. So I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm in a difficult situation now with some things going on in my life, but I know I'll be able to make it through on the other end.
Yes. Way to go, Angie Moon. Anything else you want to say about Greece? I really enjoyed the
Oh,
pictures. And
the
why I wanted to
food.
talk to you is that the
Oh my
pictures, they're just
God.
so surreal. And I'm like, I need to hear about it in
I
real
gotta I gotta
life.
post the hiking video because I did not get around to that. But yeah, the food was amazing. Like I had a lot of the same like a lot of the gyros, so I had like little wraps and little chips and the falafel inside. I think that's the best way to make a wrap with falafel. You gotta have the chips inside. I remember I had a friend who's of Greek descent, who took me to a Greek restaurant in London, and she was like, "This is the best way to have a falafel wrap. You got to have the chips inside." And I was like, "She's right."
So when you say chips, you mean French fries or fried
Yeah,
potatoes?
fries. Yeah, fries.
Wow. I'll have to try that.
Like even if
I
you just make it
love,
at home, it's really good.
yeah, that's one thing. Another thing I like about Greek food is that it's very easy to prepare, unlike French food is very complicated. And
Mm-hmm.
Greek food is simple peasant food. It's peasant
It's simple and
food.
it's really good. The tomatoes are really good. I'm not even a tomato. I don't really like tomatoes that much, but the tomatoes in Greece just tasted really, really good.
Yeah.
Oh my God, they had really good rice dishes. They had a pastizio, sort of like a lasagna sort of thing, and it was really good. I had
With
tons of
eggplant,
acai
right?
bowls.
With
Yeah,
eggplant?
aubergine,
Yes.
lots of aubergine dips. I love aubergine
Yes.
dips. I prefer baba ganoush to hummus, which may sound like a really unpopular opinion, but I like baba ganoush better. I don't care. I still
Wow.
love hummus, but baba ganoush will always be number one to me. And I also like the vegan version of tzatziki. I always loved tzatziki ever since I first tried it, and I was like, I gotta have the vegan version because I haven't had it in ages.
What is it that they replace the yogurt with?
Just a vegan yogurt, so
Oh,
probably like a
okay.
soy yogurt, or I don't think it was coconut because it didn't remind me of coconut. I think it was maybe soy.
Yeah. Well, I love to cook the food too. If you ever make it to Nashville, you can put my hummus to the test.
Yeah, nice. My brother likes making hummus too. Like he was like, I need to start a hummus business.
I just started doing something. We're really going down a Greek rabbit hole, but I started doing something last summer. I started making hummus with black-eyed peas because I'm from the
Interesting.
South. And let me tell
That sounds
you, it
cool.
is absolutely delicious. Do you like black-eyed peas?
I don't think I've had them much because, well, I'm a northerner and then I moved to Europe, so
Yeah.
I would have zero exposure to it.
Yeah, it's very southern, and I grew up eating black-eyed peas, but they're really starchy and they got a lot to them, which is
Hmm.
why they'd been be a staple of peasant food, farm food. I grew up eating black-eyed peas. So one day I decided to use black-eyed peas instead of the chickpeas, and I put all the other ingredients, and it was out of this world. And if you ever get to
Nice.
Nashville, I'm gonna make you some black-eyed pea hummus.
Oh, I'd love to go to Nashville. I've heard great things. Every person I know who's been there, they just love it.
You'll have to get here one day because it's very exotic to somebody like you, and you would be exotic to here, and I'd love to see it all mixed up together.
Like, if I stay here longer and I somehow pick up an English accent, it'll be very funny. Just me traveling over to the US.
It's natural to do, though, isn't it?
Yeah, everyone says I
You've picked
sound
up,
Irish. Everyone says I sound it now.
yeah, and you've picked up so many of the colloquialisms. You
Yep.
know, aubergine, and Americans, we call it eggplant, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's
There's
bound to
certain things
happen.
I'll still say the American thing. It's just very blended, so you don't know exactly what I'm going to be saying next.
Yes. I love it. Well, I hope you get here one day.
Oh,
Okay,
I hope so. It's just, man, the political situation. Don't get me started.
it's a very interesting place to be.
Yeah.
But I'm from Jackson, Mississippi.
Always in unprecedented times, I swear.
I've been living history my whole life. And I'm from Jackson, Mississippi, so I'm very well prepared to see the things that I see going on. That's all I'm going to say about that. Anyway, anything else you want to say about Greece before I tell you about my summer vacation?
I'd like to hear about your summer vacation because I you went to my hometown and then you went to Iowa, which is a state I've never
Yes.
been to.
Well, one thing I do remember about grade school is you'd come back to school and you tell everybody about your summer vacation. And you know why I went and planned this trip because because we've bonded over our mutual friend and heartthrob, Dave Davies. How do you
Oh,
say it?
Dave Davis.
Davis. I still say Davies, and I know it's wrong. It should be said Davis, but
Yeah, I mean the Welsh will be like, hey. It's like, they'll say Welsh names are hard to pronounce, and yeah, even the ones that look simple aren't always pronounced right.
yeah, and I've been saying it wrong my whole life, so I'm bad about it. Dave Davis was one of the rock stars that made the Flying V iconic. Yes, you see that we're twinning.
Twinning.
She's got a Flying V on the cover of her book, and I've got a Flying V in my lap.
There's a lot of symbolism in there.
And we bond. Yes, lots of symbolism in the Flying V. Was reading up of the history of the Flying V and all the people who've played it. And when I'm rambling, I went to Des Moines to buy this guitar from Ian Williams, who has a company called Nepco Guitars, and he and I worked together on the design, and he was wonderful to me, and he let me have the craziest ideas possible, and then he built it for me, and this is it.
Wow. It's beautiful. It's a
It really
masterpiece.
it, I am I've never cared about playing the guitar, but this is the one that might change it all because listen to this.
Oh my god.
It doesn't make an
Oh.
ugly sound. I did try to take a guitar lesson once, and I just couldn't bear listening to myself not be talented. But this one, like, there's almost nothing you can do to make it sound anything other than beautiful. It has two lipstick pickups, the namesake of my podcast, that were hand wound. I'm going to pimp some friends by Rio Grande Pickups of Houston. And they also engraved them for me. It's got Vardaman here and the Spirit of '79, which is the year my dad broke a birding record in Chicago. And on the headstock, it's got my family name, Vardaman, is in Victor. See what we did there? That's why it's a Flying V.
Amazing.
And then it has Ian's a revised logo of his. I hope he sticks with it. He liked the inspiration. We used the font from the cover of my dad's book to do the design work on this guitar, and he liked it so much that we're bound together forever. Here's my family name, Vardaman, and then here's Nepco Guitars, and he used the same font. And
you're inspiring me to do the same for myself. I don't play guitar, but I'm like, I do know a couple bits of bass lines. Maybe I get a custom bass made, the Angie Moon bass.
It was a surprisingly affordable thing to have done. And I'm not going to tell people what I paid for it because I don't know if Ian Williams wants to sell more of them and what he's going to charge for it. So I'm not going to tell people what I paid for it. But every cent I paid was well spent money. And it's entirely possible to have a guitar designed and have it custom made for you at an affordable price in America. And that is why I drove to Des Moines, Iowa to get it. But first I went to Angie's hometown in Chicago.
Yay! Oh, I love my hometown.
And I know we bonded over this, and I'm going to have you back on the podcast so we can talk about Chicago music, which is something.
I have a whole series about that.
It's good too. I've been reading it. I did not know that the whole LSD and what is the
Lakeshore Drive.
Lakeshore Drive. I never knew this about LSD and that people in Chicago joking about. I just learned this through Angie Moon. What is it? They've been done it forever, right? They call Lakeshore Drive LSD.
I've never really heard too many people saying that, but yeah, it's just like, oh wait, it is LSD. That's crazy.
Oh, but there's other people who've joked about it, and I found a song called LSD. A Ride Down LSD. I found your family used to talk about it, right? Am I remembering that?
Yeah, no, we would love to go down Lakeshore Drive. So sometimes we would just drive down it, and it's just amazing just to drive past it. And some of the places that we pass by are places that like near where my grandma grew up. Like my grandma grew up like right next to Lake Michigan. She'd always go to the beach there. She lived in a couple fancy hotels like the Belden Stratford and the Admiral, I believe, is the other one that's fancy.
Yeah.
She grew up in Lincoln Park, which is like a really posh neighborhood. It's absolutely beautiful there.
Yeah.
I just love Chicago. Like while I was living there, I was always complaining because the weather was always so cold and I was quite lonely. But then I'm like, man, I miss it because the food is so good. And I miss my family too.
Yeah. I absolutely love Chicago, and it reminded me again how much I love it. You told me you have a Native American ancestry. Did you say your grandmother
in Venezuela?
was...
Venezuela. Yeah, Native Venezuelan. My grandma was half
okay.
indigenous.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Well, it's really amazing. I spent a lot of time driving around Chicago, and then I decided to take a day trip up to, I'm going to be very curious to know if you've ever heard of this place. It's called Fontana on Lake Geneva, and it is a town.
Is it in Wisconsin?
Yes. It's just
I've been to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. I've been there. I've been to the Wisconsin Dells. Wisconsin Dells was one of my favorite places to go as a kid. We used to go like every month to like the water parks there. We went to like the Wilderness. We went to the Great Wolf Lodge. We went to the Kalahari.
Yes.
It was great. And then we had the Tommy Bartlett show. That was awesome. We've definitely been to Lake Geneva. I think my parents went to a timeshare presentation around that area. Oh my God. I love Wisconsin Dells. I want to go back so badly. I talk about it with my husband all the time, and I'm like, he's never been to my hometown, and I'm so sad.
Yeah. Do y'all have plans to do it someday, or?
I want to. My uncle wants to celebrate his, 75th next year. He wants to celebrate in his hometown, and I want to go, but I'm just nervous about Trump, going after, people who are critical of him, and I'm very much a critic of Trump, and, I'm worried about, also, any foreigners are just, there's a lot of risks traveling there as a foreigner, so I'd be worried about my husband, and I could never live with myself, putting him in a dangerous situation like that.
And it is dangerous because we have a lot of, things going on, and it's the reason why I'm not flying right now, too. So the reason why I went to Fontana on Lake Geneva is that my friend, the guitarist and music producer, Eric Amble, he was raised in suburban Chicago in a town called Batavia, and he spent summers at Lake Geneva. and his parents had a house there, and he spent every summer there, and it's very much part of his personal history. And then also he loves the lake life. He owned a iconic club in the East Village in New York, and it was called the Lakeside Lounge. I've been to his house in New York, his lot in New York, and he has a big poster of Lake Geneva. And so I told him when I went to Chicago, I said, I have got to see Lake Geneva with my very own eyes. So I stayed in Oak Park, by the way. I took a day trip up there and through the cornfields of Illinois and Wisconsin. And I went all the way to Lake Geneva to have lunch. And then I turned around and drove back.
Oh, nice.
It was just a beautiful drive. And I was listening to music the whole time. So that's one thing I did. But there's two other things I want to talk about Chicago. The person who built this guitar for me is named Ian Williams. And the person who runs the Chicago School of Guitar Making as well as Specimen Products is named Ian Schneller. And I don't know if you know that there is a luthier school in Chicago called the Chicago School of Guitar Making. It's on Homan Avenue, and he's been there for 25 years.
Wow. That's
He is the
amazing.
best kept secret in Chicago. I discovered him a couple years ago when somebody sent me a picture of some of the Danieletto inspired reproductions he's done with Masonite. So I had him on my I want to see this guy list. And when my husband and I went up there last October, I went and knocked on his door and he said, come on in. And he had a class, he was running a class there at he's got an incredible instrument company called Specimen Products. They do all kinds of things. Please go to the website and see all that's possible. To anyone who's listening here who loves gear, go Google Specimen Products and the Chicago School of Guitar Making, and you'll find out that it's like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. That's what I felt like when he opened the door and let me in. It's incredible.
Wow.
And I met him in October, and I told him that I wanted to see him again because he's fascinating, and he and I understand each other because he's from the Deep South. He was born and raised in Memphis, Tennessee, and he ended up in Chicago because he went to art school there to study art. And then when he's in Chicago, all his friends are playing in bands, and he starts taking the things that he's working in sculpture and he starts building guitars, and he's been doing it for decades. And he had multiple locations, but he's been at that place on Homan Avenue for 25 years. Unbelievable. Chicago School of Guitar Making. And his name is Ian Schneller. So anyway, when you get back, you'll have to go there. And, if anybody is listening to this and you've never heard of this guy, well, it's entirely possible. And I don't want to flood the guy with interest, but I do like people to look at his website and know that he teaches classes and clinics. And so when I told him I was going to be in Chicago and I hope to see his wonderful operation again, he let me come in and sit in on a class where he was teaching people how to build tube amps. So I got to sit there and listen, watch the class. I didn't learn how to make a tube amp, but I got to watch people who want to learn how to make a tube amp. It was fabulous. So that's one of the things that I did in Chicago. So yay to America's Heartland. Ian Williams, Ian Schneller, the two Ians of America's Heartland. And I love my new guitar. It was a distinct pleasure driving all the way to Des Moines, Iowa, which was an incredible city and also very ethnically diverse because of all of the Asian refugees that they took on there in the 70s and 80s, which is an interesting part of the story of Des Moines. I think I told you that. And yeah, it's the reason why Des Moines is surprising. I went and got a late bite the day I got there, and I just went into this little pub that was on the corner where I met the place where I met Ian Williams, and I decided to just order some egg rolls, and they come, and I worked in a Chinese restaurant. The egg rolls come, and I eat them, and I'm like, these egg rolls are... I thought that they would be from Cisco or Institutional. I said, these egg rolls are incredible. I said, do y'all make these? And he goes, yeah, we make them in-house. He goes, points back there.
Wow.
There's a lot of Asian influence there. It's pretty rad. Okay, we talked about summer vacation. Now we're gonna do Asian and Eastern. It's same. It's all. It's Asia, right? I mean,
Oh my
India's.
god, the 60s is full of Asian influence. Like when we started like surf rock in the early 60s, that was a lot of Middle Eastern influence, like Dick Dale and
Yes.
Mizirlu. And then when you get
Yes.
to the mid 60s, you get Indomania. And this was
Yes.
like this was like India's like kind of like golden age in the 20th century as far as cultural influence.
I
Like
agree. Okay, so now we're going to get into, and here's one thing that I want to quote from your blog post, and I can't remember if you made this in a comment or during the body of your prose. It's great to see musicians acknowledging their influence and giving credit where credit is due. That's why, and Angie understands this Indomania thing very well, and that's why she's the perfect person to talk about where credit is due. So we're going to talk about Indomania and how it wasn't anything revelatory. George Harrison was the first person to get a traditional sitar into popular music, but everybody was working with it at the same time.
oh yeah, so much of it was just simultaneously going on. Every band was just picking up sitars or even just adopting kind of that Indian sound in their music. And
Yeah.
like one of the things that bothered me so much when I was on Tumblr, so I was in the Tumblr classic rock fandom in the early 20s, and this was like at the peak of the whole SJW era, so that was like the old term for woke. And one thing that frustrated me so much was just this whole obsession with cultural appropriation and, oh, if you put a sitar in your music and you have an interest in other cultures, you are culturally appropriating. And it bothered me so much because one blog post got it completely wrong. It was on Your Fave is Problematic and was talking about John Lennon. And it was like, John Lennon appropriated Indian music with Norwegian wood and the sitar. And I was like, first off, if you know anything about the Beatles, you'll know the one who was obsessed with India was George Harrison, not John Lennon. What are you even talking about? Also, George Harrison, there's videos of this where George Harrison is with Ravi Shankar learning sitar with him.
Yes.
If Ravi Shankar was so offended by George Harrison playing sitar, he would not have taught him anything.
Yeah.
Like, use your brain.
That was one thing I talked about in my original episode is that people love those inflammatory headlines that said, Ravi Shankar says George Harrison's sitar playing is terrible. It was taken out of context. It takes years to learn that instrument, and it was George Harrison who identified himself as not really the greatest player, which is why he wanted to accelerate his skills by learning from Ravi Shankar. I don't know if we've talked about this, but the sitar in Norwegian wood, he didn't really know exactly what he was doing with it yet. It's just he's using as sort of ambient. It's in later recordings like Inner Light where he really starts to learn how to really coax things out of the sitar, and he learned it.
The Inner Light is great. Same with
Yeah.
Love You Too, Tomorrow Never Knows, Within
Yeah.
You, Without You. Oh my God, those are masterpieces.
Yeah.
Like, I love early Beatles. I love later Beatles. I love all the Beatles music because I think they have the most consistent discography of any rock band. But yeah, George Harrison was one of those musicians that really did get like that Indian sitar sound.
Yeah. One thing that was apparent when I read your writings on the subject is that you understand that all of these guys were under the gaze of Indomania, and you know where all the songs are. So start off with one. It's not just Norwegian Wood. It's what else is
Oh yeah,
happening at that time.
even with like the Kinks, like See My Friends, where
Yeah.
Ray Davis got the idea for that Indian sound. While there is no sitar on it, it's just a droning guitar.
Yeah.
It mimics that sound, and I think that's that working class creativity that the Davis brothers have, where they
Yeah.
just work with what they got. I mean, Dave Davis prior to that was just using an El Pico amp to get that fuzzy guitar sound. He was just stabbing it with a razor blade. We're not stabbing it, but just like doing that to it, and then got that fuzzy sound.
Yeah.
He was like, that's it. That's that fuzz guitar sound. And he
Yeah.
didn't have a fuzz box like other people did. He just DIY'd it. And that's really the spirit of punk. That's the spirit of rock and roll, is just DIY and working with what you got. That's the real creativity, is people who work with what they have.
Yeah.
Also at the same time were the Yardbirds with Heart Full of Soul.
Yeah.
That was another big one. And I like the sitar version of that the best, because the sitar is just the best sounding instrument there is. I just love that sound. It is the most soothing sound. It just feels good to the ears, to the soul, to the
Yeah.
mind, everything.
I want to give massive credit to Angie for knowing that there are two versions of Heart Full of Soul. A lot of people don't know that could have very easily, if it had happened, would have beat George Harrison to the punch of putting sitar in music. But you knew that. I saw it on, I said, she knows that there's two versions of Heart Full of Soul, and that what they were going for was that droning sound. And I believe you have a link to the sitar version on your post.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that was the version that I had on my iPod as a teenager when I was like listening to classic rock, was like, no, I want the sitar version. I do not want the other version. The sitar version is the best version, and
Yeah.
I will die on that hill.
Yeah. Okay, what else? I mean, all the British Invasion guys were messing around with
Oh
it.
yeah, Paint It Black with the Rolling Stones.
Brian Jones, he was an omnivore just like George Harrison. He liked to pick up all these other weird things like dulcimers.
Big Jim Sullivan, like that session guitarist who was on all those things. He started that whole Lord Sitar project. That was
okay.
him.
Another thing that you know about that I have tried to educate people about is who Big Jim Sullivan is. Okay, do you want to tell my listeners who Big Jim Sullivan is?
He worked with the British OGs of rock and roll. So a lot of people think that British rock and roll started with the Beatles, and they're absolutely wrong about that, because in the late 50s, you had Cliff Richard, you had Marty Wilde, you had Dickie Pride, you had Lonnie Donegan. Those were like your OG British rock stars, and Big Jim Sullivan was working with, I believe he worked with Marty Wilde. I'm not sure about the other guys, but he definitely worked with Marty Wilde, and he was just a session musician alongside like people like Jimmy Page. I mean, Jimmy Page, before he was in Led Zeppelin, he was a session musician working with everybody.
Yes.
Richie Blackmore, another guy who was a session musician before being in Deep Purple.
Andy Summers also was a an accomplished session musician before he got into, So Big Jim Sullivan is somebody I didn't know anything about until I started looking into sitar, because electric sitar and real sitar, because he's played both. That's when I started learning about who Big Jim Sullivan was, and I went to listen to Lord Sitar, and it is just out of this world. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if you know about this. Have you ever seen the Space Odyssey episode? I believe it's Space Odyssey episode where Big Jim Sullivan is playing an electric sitar in this group of people on a spaceship. And it's wild. And it's actually Big Jim Sullivan playing an electric sitar on this. And it's a sci-fi flick, or no, it was a sci-fi TV show, I believe. Do you know this Space Odyssey?
No, I've never heard of it.
Anyway, somebody sent it to me, and I said, who is that? And then I find out who Big Jim Sullivan is, and I am just blown away by everything that he accomplished. He played electric sitar, too, in this thing. I'll send it to you later. But you knew all about Big Jim Sullivan and his work with sitar. And, for a guitar player to also pick up a sitar and be able to play that with command on sessions or whatever, that's not easy to do. That's
Session
serious.
Musicians are really unsung heroes. That's what they are.
Yes.
They're incredible. Like, Britain had some great ones. Like, besides Big Jim Sullivan, you had like Bobby Graham on the drums. You had Nicky Hopkins on the keyboards. Amazing.
Yeah.
But also in like that British Invasion era was Donovan with Sunshine Superman. That album was just full of sitar, and also like the tambura and the tabla.
Yeah. Everybody was it was a worldwide phenomenon, not something that dropped out of the sky and then George Harrison enlightens everybody. They weren't all copying him. They were all doing it in tandem. Is something that really I appreciated about your findings, is that you want everybody to know this is all happening.
And even in America, it was spreading there. So here's something that's pretty interesting about myself. I did interview one of the musicians from this band, and they were one that had the same manager as the Beatles, and they even toured with the Beatles. And at one point, the Beatles even opened for them because of the rain, and they wanted to make sure the Beatles were on the stage, and then they played afterwards. This group were called The Circle, and I interviewed Don Daneman of that band, and he talked about Turn Down Day and the sitar used on it.
This is incredible. Small world stuff, too, because I believe when we spoke before, I've told you that there are some bands, the Animals on Monterey, they use both a real sitar and electric sitar, if you listen to it. And there were some people who toggled through both. And I think The Circle might have used electric sitar And it's an interesting spelling, by the way, right? Isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Spell it. How do you spell the circle?
Yeah, C.
Yeah. You interviewed somebody from them
Yeah, Don
or
Daneman.
man, lucky you. That's killer.
Really cool. Like, oh my God, that was probably one of my highlights of my blog. I also interviewed Tony Valentino of the Standells. And then in
Nice.
that interview, I ended up finding out one of the stories in Crime of the Century, which was that he met Manson, and he was with Dennis Wilson. It was crazy. Like he went to Spawn Ranch with Dennis Wilson.
I think, yes, I remember that. I've been reading so much that I'm forgetting that some of the things that I've read in your book, but the brushes with the Manson family are quite terrifying, you know.
There's so many more than I thought. And like
Yeah.
there's like even other ones that I just didn't think to put in there. Like obviously like John Waters and his whole obsession with the Mansons and his friendship with Leslie Van Houten. Like
Yeah, it's
that's definitely
weird.
one I want to talk about in a future installment of my books. Also another one like in British rock and
Yeah.
roll was Traffic with Paper Sun and Hole in My Shoe. Those ones were sitar.
Yes. Yeah. Everybody was doing it. There were, so what I want to talk about when we talk about real sitar and electric sitar, Angie understands that these are two totally different instruments. In many ways, they couldn't be more different. One is Indian and classical and very old and very fragile and difficult to play. And one of them was patented and invented in America, and it's nothing more than a guitar with a buzz bridge. For the audio listener, I'm holding up my Flying V electric sitar, and this would be a guitar if it wasn't for this right here. This is what does it. It's the buzz bridge. And that's what makes it sound, if that wasn't there, you would sound just like a regular guitar. They're completely different instruments, but what Nat Daniel, the founder of Dan Electro, and Vinnie Bell, his close collaborator and a very busy session guitarist, were trying to capture the zeitgeist of the popularity of sitar because it wants to go electric. It wants to,
It's like Dylan and folk music.
yes.
Like there were just two. It's like that's the interesting connection is just how much change there was in the 60s. Like Dylan going electric, the sitar going electric, going from, mod to dandy to hippie. And then like one thing that I thought about recently with the Indian influence in rock and roll is that it wasn't just rock music. It was also in fashion, like the Nehru collars and the
Completely.
amounts of paisley that people would wear. And
The listener is going, what's a Nehru collar? Because I studied a little fashion. She's talking about the collars on the Beatles jackets, and other people's jackets. It's kind of a stand-up collar, and it's called a Nehru collar, and it's extremely Asian. Wow. I mean, what else?
like also those Indian import dresses were also like a big thing as well. The fool dresses, I think, or something like that.
Yeah.
Another thing, like also just the whole name, the Peacock Revolution. Like I was looking up the origin of the peacock because you were talking about birds and I was like, okay, I got to look up the peacock. And I was like, they're from India.
Yeah.
The Peacock Revolution, that happened in the 60s, right as the sitar was growing in prominence and revolutionizing psychedelic rock.
Yeah.
And then the Peacock Revolution was going on at the same time, and peacocks are from India. And then the Peacock Revolution of the 60s, it took very late Victorian dandyism and then combined it with like a lot of Asian influences.
Yeah.
And then it just made it psychedelic. It was just incredible. I have such an obsession with dandyism, and that was a very recent thing that I got obsessed with. And I just love
it's
it.
about vibrancy, the colors, and Indian food is very,
And even then, like the original, not original, because there were many iterations of dandy. I mean, the original dandies would probably before Beau Brummel, but Beau Brummel was like kind of a different type of dandy. But then you had that later kind of 1800s dandies who were into aestheticism.
Yeah.
And there were tons of Asian influences there, like all over Asia, like Middle East, China, India, a bit, Japan, all of that. And there were just so many influences in that aestheticism from Asian cultures. Like it's just amazing seeing all these cultures colliding. It's just beautiful.
I did not, I've always heard that word dandy, but I didn't really understand it as an aesthetic movement until I started talking to you. Dandyism.
Yep.
and the whole Oscar Wilde thing,
Oh
everything
my
about
God, I could talk all day about it. And that was the first chapter I wrote for my Celebrity Trials book, because that's where it kind of begins. And
yes.
he was the godfather of the Peacock Revolution, if you will, because if you see those photos from the 1882 Napoleon Serenity photo shoot, I'm going to talk so much about this, I'm going to sound like Morrissey, but
No, please
anyway,
go.
this was the photo shoot, and there is no other photo shoot that did this. This is the one that launched photographic copyright. There was an entire Supreme Court case around that photo shoot because somebody ripped off those photos in advertisements, and Napoleon Serenity sued the Burrough Giles Lithographic Company in the 1880s, right after that whole photo shoot. In 1884, they ruled in his favor, and photographs could be copyrighted.
Yes.
Yep, that's true.
And then also the Peacock Revolution. I didn't really understand that too, and it was a total aesthetic, right? It's everything.
Oh yeah, it's like the turning the original dandyism of Beau Brummel on its head, because Beau Brummel was the great male renunciation. Because prior to the Beau Brummel, men were dressing very colorfully. And then Beau Brummel was like, no, we're going to go be plain. And then, people like Oscar Wilde were like, no, we're going to be colorful again. Yeah. And then he kind of gave that up. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, I mean, and then rock stars were looking at that and were going, yeah, let's bring that back. And I think Dave Davis and Brian Jones were the guys to really bring dandyism to the 60s. I hate it whenever I read dandyism history posts, and I'm like, why does no one ever bring up Brian Jones? Nobody ever brings up Dave Davis. Those guys are key to dandyism, and I say the Beatles are too.
Yes.
George Harrison got it. George Harrison got that dandyism.
Completely. Yeah, I understand costume history, and if anybody's listening to this and going, why are these two girls talking about clothes? The rock and roll style is central to all of this personal style.
It wouldn't be the same if they were just in jeans and t-shirts. It would look so blah. It's a whole fantasy that they're selling. It's a whole image that they're selling. It's a product that they're selling. That's what music really is. And
yes.
Yeah, sure, we fall for it, but there's art in it, and well, screw it. It's art for art's sake. Does it need a message? Does it need to be significant? It's have fun. Life is short. You know what? Just make life a party. That's what it should be.
Yeah. I never really thought about Dave Davis and his style, Dave Davis and his style until you started bringing up him as an example of dandyism. And I was like, oh yeah.
Definitely. If you just see, that entire 1882 Napoleon Serenity shoot with Wilde, that was basically Dave Davis looked at that and copied the entire thing. The hairstyle, the velvets, the jackets. It was just that's the entire look. And he nailed it. He got the assignment. And he took it, he grabbed his flying V and took it to the next level. And that's what I try to do with my dandy iteration. I combine it with a bit of pinup. Dita Von Teese is my other big style icon. Absolutely love her in her old Hollywood kind of glamour.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that. And I guess I take the extreme femininity of her, and then I take that extreme feminine masculinity of the dandy, and I put it together somehow. Yeah. It's just, that's what I love. I just love that sort of blurring of everything. And I think that's what dandyism is. It's blurring lines.
Yeah, and Brian Jones, I remember reading that he and Anita Pallenberg used to like to wear each other's clothes, and I'm like, I'm a big fan of that because
I think Freddie Mercury did that with Mary Austin too, if I remember right. Yeah,
David
all the rock
Bowie. It's androgyny is a wonderful thing, and I've always had. I used to call myself Sporty Spice because I haven't. My style is actually strangely influenced by my father. I dress a lot like him. I like classic things that border on masculine, but I did today wear my Cher earrings. I told Angie that I was going to wear my beaded Cher earrings.
And they match your guitar.
Yes. You see, I'm going to take this out again since we're talking about clothes.
And then it's got that kind of triangle pattern. Yeah, it works perfectly. I don't know if that was intentional, but whether or not it was, it's beautiful.
Very intentional.
But that's the thing. It looks so effortless, and I love that. That's what style is. It's got to be effortless. It can't look like it's got you got to spend a lot of effort into making it look effortless.
Yes, I love green and white together. It's the color of mint gum. You look at it and just it feels refreshing. And I got to thank one of my oldest friends, Pam Jackson Norman of Asheville, North Carolina, is the one who gave me these earrings because she knows that I love ink and alloy earrings. And she gave me these, but see, I worked it all out. And I bought this necktie at a thrift store, but it all goes together.
And then like here, the paint color, I remember picking this out at the hardware store with my husband, and I was like, ooh, it says Proud Peacock. I gotta have it. That's gonna be the living room because I based it all off the Peacock room.
The name of
That's
the
where I based it
paint
off of.
is called Proud Peacock.
That's the shade of it. Yeah, it's a Dulux Proud Peacock.
So I also have a blue wall here, and I painted it during the pandemic Explorer Blue, because, trapped into the house, and I said, I want to put this Explorer Blue, and I painted the ceiling and everything. But my wall is also blue, and I saw that color, and I go, these names that people give things, these nail polish companies, it's very important, a name.
It's an art. Like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people laugh at, like, writing, oh, what do you do all day? I just sit there with a pen and a quill and at your bureau or whatever. But I'm like, there's so much, like, what's in a name? It's like, it's very important. Like, it just kind of defines the thing.
My dream job would be to come up with these names for the nail companies. This is a big thing in the nail care industry, I've learned. I like to paint my nails, but I don't do anything too exotic. And people would always say, what color is that? And I go, I don't know. I just picked it out. And that's when I started realizing how many women commit the name of the color. I don't know. Do you wear nail polish? Not everybody.
No, my nails are all like natural. There's nothing on them. It's just because I type so much and they'll just chip away. And I'm like, I can't have that. And I always felt like I tried fake nails once. Like, I had these glow in the dark fake nails when I was a kid, and I was like, oh, I'm going to put them on. And I was like, oh, I don't like the way this feels. Take it off. Take it off.
That
like, I was very tomboyish growing up.
The one time I wore thong underwear, I put it on for 1 minute, and I said, no, thank you. We're really going behind the scenes. But, nail polish is, it's a thing. And I've always liked to keep my nails short. And I do like to wear polish. It's just an expression. I
like eyeshadow in that same way. Eyeshadow is like a big one. And I decided to go for a very peacock kind of look. So the dark blue and the kind of peacock green teal in the middle. That's how I decided to do my makeup for today.
Hey, when I get to England, my dream is to come out there to Coventry and get you to put some makeup on me, because I've never really known how to do some of these glamorous looks, and I would love to have somebody do it to me and see if I can put...
It's so easy. Like, for me, it's just all I do is I just put a base color on. I usually just put one color, but I decided to do an ombre look here. And then with the 60s eyeliner, what I do is I just use a gray eyeshadow, and I draw out the line, and I just trace over it with a gel eyeliner. That's all I do.
Okay, well.
Very, very easy. Like,
it looks fantastic on you. And I told Angie in preparation for our talk about Indomania is that I watched the movie Help, and it is a feast for... Have you seen it? Have you seen it?
Yeah, a long time ago. I remember being fascinated with that conversation pit in the house. I was like, I need that. I've always wanted to have a house with those trap doors and things like that. I always found those fascinating.
It is. I hadn't watched it in several years, and when I watched it, it's quite silly. It's hard following the crazy bonkers storyline, which involves a ring, which is why I wore a fancy ring today. But and it's peak Indomania. It's vibrant. It's a feast for the eyes. Everything about it. And the colors and everything else. Anyway, but the woman in the movie, she reminds me of you. Did you watch?
Is it Eleanor Braun? The actress Eleanor Braun? Because I remember I had a friend who compared me to her once.
Oh, yeah, but her clothes, everything every time I see what she's wearing, I was like, I want to see Angie Moon in that. She's got the most... But she's also got the eye makeup that is very 60s, and it reminds me of you. And she's also got jet black hair and all that stuff. So she reminded me of you.
Very cool.
If you are a music fan and you haven't watched Help in a long time, watch it, because that is how George Harrison got exposed to sitar. Angie knows this. He stumbled into it on the set. Everybody had their reasons for discovering it. And Ravi Shankar was already making something called world music, and there were hippies in Greenwich Village that were learning how to play the sitar. And there it is on the set of Help, and George Harrison's like, here, and he picks it up, and the rest is history.
I mean, the 60s was really like almost a beginning of world music in so many ways, like with, the Middle Eastern influence in surf rock. Indomania. You also had like Latin and kind of Brazilian jazz in there. And then, of course, Santana, which was like a lot of people's intro to like Latin music and world music, Santana. Ska, like also ska has got to be included in there.
Yes.
Like I remember asking my dad, so how did you get into Latin American music? And then my dad was like, I got to think about that one. I was like, Dad, was it Santana? And he was like, yes, it was.
What, he didn't want to admit, or he had forgotten?
I don't know if he'd forgotten it, just because the first album came out when he was a teenager. So he
Yeah.
would have been 14 when that first album came out in 69,
Yeah.
1969. Yeah.
All of the history after World War II, the world had no choice but to really start mixing, right? And you've got
Mm-hmm.
people leaving continents and people coming and going, people going from Australia to England. You know all about that if you're a Kinks fan. I
Mm-hmm.
would love to record a podcast just with you to talk about the Kinks, because I
Oh,
think that
I can
I
talk
know the
about them
music.
all day and all of the night, from morning till the end of the day. Oh my God.
Perfect way to express it.
That's always what Kinks
I've got,
fans do. They always reference their lyrics.
yes, it's the greatest. Anything that's should have a K in front of it.
I almost joke, oh my God, it's like they did that before the Kardashians did it.
Original gangster. Yeah, I just love the Kinks, and I know that you know a lot about them, and I would love to talk about that. But anyway, so back to Endomania. I guess in focus, Angie agrees with me. The sitar and the electric sitar are completely different instruments. And you could say, what? That's not a revelation. I have had to correct people over and over again about the difference of these two instruments. I went down to Muscle Shoals to do a tour of the Fame recording studios, and they have an electric sitar there. It has been there since the 60s. I'm convinced that, Dan Letru, Nat Daniel sent it down to them, and it's resided there ever since. So I sprung for the Backstage Pass tour, and the young tour guide, they have young people working there, and they take turns doing the tour. And they're young people. They're still learning. They're in the 20s, and they're learning. He's giving the tour, and he starts pointing to the electric sitar, and he goes, it is this instrument that is on the Beatles' Norwegian Wood, and that is completely inaccurate, but it's not his fault. He's just confused. There's so much to know. That's why I don't like generation bashing, because I have found that young people know, or the first to say, I didn't know that, or be quick to learn things. And you're a prime example of that. You're nearly half my age, which is why we can talk about this music. You've been learning about it your whole life in a very coherent way. But I said to that guy, he starts telling everybody in the room that this is what the Beatles used. And he's pointing to electric sitar, and that is emphatically wrong.
It's
to
impossible.
Yeah,
It's
and also
impossible.
impossible. But and everybody there on the tour, most of them are tourists, are going, oh, really? Oh, really? And I pulled that young man aside after the tour, and I told him, George Harrison used a classical sitar on Norwegian Wood. This is an electric sitar. And he goes, thank you for telling me that.
And you did it
Anyway,
in such a dignified way where you pulled him to the side. You didn't just like call him out on the spot. That's very good.
yeah, it was important enough that I want him to know that, because they're completely two different instruments. And if you want to know the difference and hear the difference, you go to listen to the Animals, and they sing about Ravi Shankar. And then you have somebody playing an electric sitar they're playing a guitar lead with an electric sitar, and they're mixing them together. And they are completely opposite, although they do have this resonate. They're mainly share the properties of resonating instruments, and that's why Dan Lecce put a buzz bridge on this guitar to make it sound like a sitar. But they're completely
It's a
different.
genius invention.
Yes, Nat Daniel's son Howard is the one who told me that Nat Daniel and Vinnie Bell sat in a room, and they brought in a real sitar, and they were like, how do we make a guitar sound like this thing? And Nat Daniel, who was not a musician but a self-taught engineer and sound engineer, they discovered it's about that buzz bridge. It's all about the buzz bridge. And they kind of came up with that together, and then they designed this buzz bridge, and they designed that guitar, and then it makes it into all this other music. And I know we've been talking a long time, but I want to point out some of the songs that Angie knows about because they are also listed in this piece that she did on Indian influence beyond, because you're talking beyond the sitar. It's
because there's other Indian classical instruments, especially like in percussion, that I think need to be discussed. Tamboras.
Yes. But you got your finger on all of the popular music that has electric sitar on it, and it is a star-studded affair. One of them, Oasis.
Mm-hmm.
You've got that. I believe you've got them mentioned. Manic Street Preachers. I didn't know about this band until I read about them, but they use electric sitar. Manic Street Preachers. I didn't know anything about them until I read your
And then
post.
Kula Shaker, that was like a huge part of their brand, like a lot of Indian influence.
Turn Down Day. And you mentioned Monterey, and then you also mentioned Green Tambourine by the Lemon Pipers. Do you know anything about the Lemon Pipers?
Not too much, but I do remember that song was in like the Recess movie, I believe. And the Recess movie had like a lot of classic rock kind of references in it. I'm pretty sure it's just because the show was probably written by boomers.
Yeah. One reason why people know about the Lemon Pipers is that song Green Tambourine made it on an iconic compilation that was curated by somebody's going to flame me for not remembering his name. It's called Nuggets. And
yes, that is the amazing compilation. That one's legendary. I love that one. Lenny Kaye.
Yes, thank you very much, Lenny Kaye. Sorry, apologies to Lenny Kaye, but it's an iconic compilation, and that's why so many people know about so many of these bands like the Electric Prunes and I believe the Lemon Pipers are on there. But they were from Ohio, and they were a one-hit wonder, but they made that record up in New York, and guess who's playing it on that track? Vinnie Bell, because he's a session musician. And I think that was recorded in '66, and he's got his brand new prototype. And that's why Green Tambourine and that whole Lemon Pipers record has electric sitar all over it. Vinnie Bell helped invent it, and then he put it on that session. It's Vinnie Bell on it. Did you know that?
No.
I didn't
That's
until
amazing.
I looked it up.
I'm so glad we're learning from each other here. And then in preparation for this episode, I listened to SF Sorrow by The Pretty Things, and that's got sitar all over it.
Yes. And I'm a little Pretty Things deficit too, and I know you know a lot more. I think you know a lot more about The Pretty Things than I do, but we're learning from each other. See this?
Yeah, like if you like Dave Davis's kind of style with the hair, Phil May had the exact same look.
Yeah.
The exact same thing, and he had his hair even longer than Dave.
Yeah.
And then coincidentally, both were by men.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's like, what is up with that hairstyle? I almost joke, oh, that must be the bi men's hairstyle, maybe.
I'm trying to think what it is. Yeah, it's you mean with the bangs?
The center parted, kind of long, shoulder length,
Yeah, androgynous look.
Yep.
So you talk
about... I considered cutting my hair that short, but then I was like, that doesn't suit me. I have to have it super long.
Yeah, I've always had, do you know, this is long hair for me. I've kept my hair pixie short my entire life nearly. So I had it cut off when I was in London. I went to the Vidal Sassoon, isn't it Covent Garden? I was in Covent Garden. You'll love this. I mean, we're really going deep here. I was in Covent Garden, and I had this is the 80s, and I had just gotten my hair permed because of Cher. You and I talked about Cher. Mm-hmm. The movie Moonstruck made me want to have the curly hair of Cher. Have you ever seen the movie Moonstruck?
No.
It's a beautiful movie, and it's one of my favorite movies of all time. Anyway, in the movie, she gets her hair done, and she's got all these, they started calling them spiral curls. Her hair's very curly. I decided to get a perm in my hair, and it did not go well. And I was walking the streets of Covent Garden, and a woman comes up to me with a clipboard, and she goes, "Would you like to have your hair cut for free? We need students at the Vidal Sassoon School." They're all over London. They were at that time where you teach people how to cut hair. And I said, "Okay, let's go." And they took me and they chopped my hair off, and I wore it pixie short for years ever since then. It's a true story.
Wow. My grandma was a hairdresser. So my grandma, who was from Venezuela, she was a hairdresser. Yeah. What's interesting is her last name was Colmenares, which translates to beehive in like Spanish, and then beehive hair.
Yes.
And she was a hairdresser back in the 60s when that was the cool hairstyle.
Yeah, I love it. And I think the reason why the pixie haircut I loved is that my icons were this Twiggy,
Mm-hmm.
Mia Farrow, the short pixie hair. And people used to always say, I could never wear my hair like that. And I'm like, it's easier than you think it is. It's just, you got to want it, and,
Mm-hmm.
everybody wants their hair like they want their hair. And that's one reason why I wore my hair pixie short, but it happened in London. How about that?
Wow.
The one
I
time
mean,
I went to the UK, I
it's
got my hair cut.
that's like Twiggy. Like, yeah, that's the land of Twiggy.
Okay. And you also understand that the sound of electric sitar is instrumental in the sound of Stevie Wonder.
Mm-hmm. Signed,
You
sealed, delivered.
and Made to Love Her, you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
that on your blog post. It's on a bunch of his tracks, not just one. It's on a bunch of his tracks, and it's very emblematic of the Motown sound. You unearth that.
They got world-class session musicians at Motown. That's the thing about Motown. The Funk Brothers, the world-class session musicians that came out of there.
The one who was playing electric sitar on all those sessions is named Eddie Chank Willis, and he was from my mother's hometown of Grenada, Mississippi. I think you and I discussed before about Little Mississippi and about how everybody made it up there. And Chank Willis was a great migration story. He moved from Mississippi to Detroit to put those on there, but he was from my mom's hometown. Chank Willis is the one who's playing electric sitar. See, when I did all this research, I started getting interested in the studio because I figured they've got it in these studios. And if I want to figure out where the tracks are, I have to listen to all this music. And I started learning about who put it on it, which is why I know all the session guys. I'd learn about a song. I'd want to know where it was made. And then I'm like, okay, who played it? And what I discovered is really just a handful of people, with these early things that were carrying the torch for the electric sitar, and Eddie Willis was one of them. He's known as a Telecaster guy, and he was also known to play Gibson instruments, but where he made his most distinctive mark is with the buzz bridge. Because you can't miss it in all those Motown recordings. Cry Like a Baby, that's on your list. That was recorded in Memphis with Reggie Young playing on that. Do you know anything about Reggie Young? He was
No.
well, he lived in Memphis and then he moved to Nashville, and there's plenty of people around here who don't know anything about him either. He was one of the busiest session men in Memphis, and then when the studios work dried up there, he moved to Nashville. And he is also known as a master of the Telecaster, but he also put electric sitar on all kinds of stuff. Dusty in Memphis. Did you know, is that in your post? I can't remember. Do you know that Dusty in Memphis has electric sitar on it?
No. I gotta listen now.
It's
There's so
beautiful.
much I've learned from your playlist.
The Land of Make Believe and several other tracks. That is Reggie Young at American Recording Studios in Memphis. And of course, Dusty was from England, but she comes to Memphis to make a record, and Reggie Young played electric sitar on her stuff. Okay, here's one thing that you know that nobody else knows, that not anybody I've talked to knew. When I first started doing research on electric sitar, people would say, Steely Dan put it on Do It Again. And I'd go, yeah, that everybody knows that. Talk to me about this instrument. The first thing they name check is, oh, yeah, it's on Do It Again. It's on Do It Again. And I always tell them, yes, it's also on another song that they did later. It's called Bad Sneakers, and you sniffed that one out. It's on your blog post. You said, and later they put it on Bad Sneakers. Do you know who Rick Beato is? He's an educator, content creator.
Heard the name.
Anyway, he did an interview with Denny Diaz a few months ago, and they talk about how they used it, and they say never used it again, but it's on Bad Sneakers. I'm not sure who's playing it, but Denny Diaz is credited on that. But so it's entirely possible that Denny Diaz did use it again on the song Bad Sneakers, and he doesn't remember, but Angie Moon knew that it was on there, so ding,
Wow.
ding, ding.
Thank you.
I'm giving you all kinds of victory laps because it really was revelatory to me when I found that thing. And I was like, she knows. She knows.
Like, I just wrote it for
All right.
fun when I was like 23.
Shocking.
I was like, just writing it for fun. And then I was like, I didn't know that it would have so much impact. I was just writing it for fun.
She was only 23 when she wrote it, and she knows her stuff. She knew her stuff at the age of 23, and she still does. Or she'll find it out. So you had that one. Yeah, you mentioned Stevie Wonder and the Funk Brothers. Here's another one. This is a Dutch band, Shocking Blue.
Yep.
Yes,
And there's
that
so much more to them than Venus. Like, that's the thing.
completely.
And they had the
Explain to
sitar on the album cover. So I was like thinking, okay, they got a sitar on it. They got to have sitar on this album. It's like, there it is.
Yeah. So tell my listeners who Shocking Blue is because a lot of people don't know who they are. And
Yeah. So they had that singer, they had a beautiful singer named Mariska Perez. And she had just this beautiful, bold eye makeup, just a very powerful voice. They were famous for Venus. And yeah, they had songs with sitars. And one of them mentions raga in it. And I'm like,
yeah,
there it is. That's my hint. So that was a pattern that I constantly noticed was raga. If it says
yeah,
raga, it's going to have a sitar and it's going to have Indian influence. That
yeah.
is from India. There it is.
Okay, and now explain to my listeners that there is a genre called raga rock, and that is. So, what do we where did raga? When did people first start using that term? Do you know raga
I
rock?
wonder if it was a retrospective term. That's what I wonder
Yeah,
if it was. Like it was just applied later.
yeah.
And like one of the things that I remember finding out during the pandemic was about sitar metal. And there's a whole band called Sitar Metal, and they combine Indian classical with metal. And it was just so epic. I was like, this is amazing. I got it. If you look it up on YouTube, Spotify, whatever you listen to music, sitar metal, it is mind blowing. It is amazing.
So the metal guys love electric sitar because the metal really does love that Eastern scales thing. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and Eddie Van Halen taught us that. And I love that because it really does. The Asian influence goes with metal beautifully. It really does. All the sophisticated guitar playing
I
is
mean,
very,
Eddie Van Halen, like I always remember telling people, he was half Indonesian. Like
that's
a
right.
lot of people will forget that because he didn't look like it. Like until you take a closer look at his face, that's where you can really see it is in his face.
That's right. I forgot that. He's a fascinating person to know about.
Oh yeah, like
Do
that was the
you?
first place I had Indonesian food was in Amsterdam. I remember going to Amsterdam. I was like, oh, there's an Indonesian population there. I got to try some Indonesian food. It was really spicy.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember barely anything of the Amsterdam trip because I was like stoned half the time. So I remember almost nothing besides going to museums, getting Indonesian food, meeting up with one of my friends, and that was all I remember.
Did you hit the hash bars? Is that why you were stoned?
Yeah, I got like hash brownies. So I got a hash brownie and I remember smoking a joint in one of the coffee shops. And there was a Doors themed coffee shop. Like, I didn't go to that one. I went to Abraxas, which was the name of a Santana album. I was like, ooh, I like that. It's got a Santana
You
song.
are so lucky to be so well traveled. It is really one reason why you're open to learning about things that you've been able to do all this travel. That's very, very lucky of you. I've done a lot of travel too, but not as much international
Oh my
travel.
god, travel is just like that was like the thing. I think if there was something that I love as much as classic rock, it would be travel. Like that
Yeah.
is just a huge influence, just a huge inspiration to me just because my grandparents just loved traveling and that was just I grew up hearing all their stories of all the places that they'd go and I remember them telling the story of their favorite place to ever go and that was China. And they went
Hmm.
4 times between the early 80s and 2008. That was the last time they went to China was 2008 and it's changed heaps since then. It's
Yeah.
just modernized so much. And my grandparents went right when tourism opened in China because my grandpa was like, I got to see the Great Wall of China. So they went, when the first time they went to China, nobody was driving cars really. It was just bikes everywhere.
Yeah.
And there were no hotels. They were staying where diplomats would stay in these like diplomat guest houses.
Yeah.
It was just like, I want to go to China so badly. Like, that's something that I want to plan, but I want to go with my family, especially my brother, because he's really into food. And even though we're quite different food wise, because he loves meat and I don't eat it at all,
Yeah.
I think my brother's just such an amusing guy to travel with. And he's great at travel planning. Like, he planned the Japan thing. Like, he and my husband were the planners.
Where does he live? If you told me,
My
where does your
brother,
brother?
Florida,
Yeah. Florida. Which town?
Naples.
Naples. Yeah. South Florida, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Southwest Florida. So 2 hours away from Miami.
Yeah. Yeah, travel is what it's all about. Maybe one day you and I will run rock and roll travel junkets where we take people.
Oh my God, that's what I'd love to do. I remember there was a company that does like little influencer tours, and they wanted me to do a tour. And I was like, first off, those tours are way overpriced. I don't want to charge people ridiculous amounts of money. I just want to be able to have like a group trip with my followers where we actually just go to places. Like, my dream would be to do a Trials of the Century tour where I talk about the different celebrity trials, but I mean, the only realistic place I could do it is in England, and there's like one celebrity trial I could do in England, and that's it.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple more. I mean, if I talk about the Craze and John Bindon, like
I
those were all at the Old Bailey.
I think there's some interesting seeds in that idea. I've gone back and forth to New York a lot in my life, and people would always say, I want to go to New York with you because I'm very empowered there. You know, I've gotten to know all the boroughs and I've stayed all over and I know the city a lot more than most people do. And I always think to myself, if anybody wants to pay to go, if you'll pay for me to go to New York, I'll show you how to do New York.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even need to make money. You just pay me. You bring me there and I'll show you how to do New
Same.
York.
Like, I would do that for London. Like, I always get sad whenever people I know go to London. And I'm like, why didn't you call me? I would have shown you everything. You didn't even need to pay me. I would just be there. I'd be like, okay, I'm dragging you to all the classic rock landmarks. I'm going to show you the record stores and the vintage shops
Yeah.
and the vegan restaurants. Even if you don't eat vegan food, you're going to like the food that I show you.
I'm going to take you up on that because
My God, I love
only went
showing
once
people
and it
around
was
London.
yeah, I just love London. And I want to see Coventry too. This is a fascinating place, Coventry, England. I would love to see your
Yeah,
hometown.
Coventry's a very multicultural place. It's the birthplace of two-tone ska, which was
Yeah.
something I was quite into when I was younger because I was really into the mod subculture, and that was part of the mod revival in
Weren't
the
were
early
the
80s.
specials from
Yes.
Coventry? Yes.
Yes, the specials are from there,
Yeah.
and the
I don't
selector too.
yeah, I love England. Anglophilia is, I love it. And I'm not as well traveled as you are, but I did get to go once and it really made an impact on me. And when I
Oh
get,
my God. You'll love just coming back here. It's just great. I love just, even if it's not the same as the 60s,
yeah,
there's just still those beautiful old buildings, and I just can't get over how they look. I always feel like, oh, I feel like I'm in Disney.
yeah,
Like, I don't say that out loud because I don't want to sound like an idiot, but it
it's just,
does look beautiful. It's very fairy tale-like in some places, especially
it,
like Stratford-upon-Avon. Oxford is definitely the most beautiful place in England by far. I remember taking my parents there and they were like, you weren't joking with how beautiful it is. There's not an ugly building in sight there.
yes, it's so beautiful. I even like the row houses. I enjoyed that from the movie Help, just the row
Mm-hmm.
houses with the fan lights. My parents were both Anglophiles, and my mom loved English style. That's why I was raised in a Cape Cod. She liked that style. And I remember she'd
I
always
grew up in a
liked
Cape Cod as well.
yeah, she loved the fan light, like number 10 Downing Street. It has this, you have this black door, whatever color it is, and it has that fan light on top of it. And those row houses that you see in the movie Help, I'm like, I would love to live in one of those houses. I
I
just
lived
love,
in a Victorian row house for a little bit right when I moved here because my husband was still renting, and then we bought our house and then we moved in. Mine's
yeah,
not an old Victorian row house. I wish it was. It's just a semi-detached mid-century. It's just really cool to, own a house. I mean, that's just something I feel very lucky
ever,
because a lot of my generation can't own houses, and
yeah. It's hard. It's
yeah,
a lot
beggars
harder than,
can't be choosers. That's just kind of it.
yeah. Okay, more tracks, and then I'm gonna break you loose reluctantly because I could talk to you all day.
Oh my God, it's fun.
Okay, here is another big one for me. And when I tell people on the extended list, T-Rex, Chrome Sitar, Mark Bolan, is that how you pronounce it?
Bowling,
Bolan?
yep. Bowling, yep.
He was just starting to refigure his sound when he died in that car accident.
Yeah, he did that collab with David Bowie on his own chat show right before that. And it just makes me so sad seeing him. He didn't know what was going to happen. And I think, if I remember right, he brought Eddie Cochran's guitar back to his vehicle, and he always felt like he was going to die in a car accident. And Mark Bolan constantly wrote songs about cars, and he was
Yeah.
afraid of driving. He never learned to drive, and then he died just like Eddie Cochran did, one of his idols. And I believe Gloria Jones, she was the one driving. That was his
Another,
partner, and she felt guilty just because of
yeah.
that. It's just so sad.
It is such a sad story because that was a life cut short. And he was Chrome Sitar, that record is, the song is Chrome Sitar.
Futuristic Dragon, I
And
believe, is the album.
yeah, Futuristic Dragon. And it was a futuristic record. And he was starting to evolve in his sound. And he is the one playing electric sitar on the song Chrome Sitar. And it is. It's a chrome sitar. It's an electric guitar that sounds like a sitar. And it is one of my favorite.
What makes me so sad is that his death was so overshadowed by Elvis because it was exactly the month after Elvis.
Yeah, that's right. I remember Michael Jackson and Farrah Fawcett died on the same day, and I said Farrah Fawcett had her star stolen, her thunder stolen by Michael Jackson. Farrah Fawcett, you know who she is, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Actress. Yep.
She was an icon when I was growing up in the 70s. Farrah Fawcett dies, and then a couple hours later, Michael Jackson dies, and there's no more Farrah Fawcett. It just kind of captured everybody's attention instead of the other event. But yeah, Mark Bolan, that was a tragic loss, but that is a killer track. Everybody needs to go listen to Chrome Sitar. And you also knew about Steve Miller. People keep coming to me and going, do you know Steve Miller used electric sitar? And I go, yes, I know Steve Miller used electric sitar. I can't remember what all songs you checked, but is it Wild Mountain Honey?
He's not someone that I listen to much, but yeah, that was just... Wild Mountain Honey. Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, Wild Mountain Honey. You mentioned that song, and he also used it on a song called Winterland. And he was such an effects. He is. He's still very much alive, by the way. And when he plays live, he is known to bring out his original electric sitar and play it on these songs. But, he's somebody worthwhile that you should listen to with the idea of that he was kind of an effects electronic pioneer. His stuff was really weird, and it's like smoke a bowl and go listen to it.
I might have to do that tonight.
Yeah, I went deep. I grew up with him on the radio, and I love him, with some of these iconic songs like... What is the one? I brought you a crate of papaya, sat all night by your door. What song is that? Jungle Love. His song, Jungle Love. Jungle Love. You'll have to listen to it. He's somebody I grew up listening to in the 70s on the radio, but he still plays electric sitar, and he's somebody I think you would enjoy listening to. And when you listen to it, understand that he was a pioneer with all this weird stoner shit that he was doing with effects pedals in the 70s is basically.
Effects pedals are really cool. I went to a guitar show in Solihull, and that's like right near Birmingham. And they had like really cool effects pedals. I think they had like a Jimi Hendrix one, and they had a Hello Kitty one, I believe. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
It's all about the design too.
Yeah. Aesthetics are huge in guitars in that world.
Massive.
Huge.
Just the artwork on those pedals just becomes its own thing. So you and I, to talk about fashion and plants and food, it all goes hand in hand. Just the artwork on those effects pedals. So do you go to guitar shows often? Is that
I only went the one time, and it's because one of my friends, he's really good at guitar, and he's very dedicated. He has multiple guitars in his house, and he has this book called Guitar Aerobics. He gave it to my husband. And it gets you really good at guitar, apparently.
Guitar
I'll have to show
aerobics?
It to you. Let me see if I have it somewhere. Oh, yeah, I do have it right here, I think.
Look at how handy is that?
That's it. That's the book that John got for Owen.
Guitar Aerobics.
Yeah. It's a great title also because John likes to work out, so...
Is it instructional about fretwork, or is...
So it's a year kind of 1 lick per day workout program for developing, improving, and maintaining guitar technique. Sounds really cool. I'm really bad with motor skills, and I'm always like scared because there's so many more strings. There's like 2 more strings on a guitar than there is on a bass, and I think it sounds stupid, but I'm like, I'd rather learn bass because there's fewer strings, and I think I won't be accidentally pressing other strings as much. God, that sounds silly, but...
Yeah.
I also just like the sound of a bass too, because it just vibrates a lot more.
Yeah. Well, your voice is very alto on the low end, and so it kind of suits you. I'd love to see. Okay, if Angie Moon played a bass, what kind of bass would it be? Should it
Oh my god,
be?
probably a flying V. I'd want a flying V bass. That would be my dream, but I gotta get good at it. And I just have, a basic Squire one upstairs, and I'm like, I really want to get a flying V bass at some point. Maybe I could get one with like blood splatters like on it like that, because that would be really cool as just a tribute to Card of the Century. I gotta get something like that. So,
You can
little
have
fake blood
any.
splatters. That
It's
would be my dream.
amazing that you can have anything made. Well, I'm sure you could probably
England's got
buy.
definitely luthiers here. There's definitely tons of those here. So I'm sure I could find someone who can make me the flying V base of my dreams. It's purple. And I mean, I'm almost like, can I just give them, like carte blanche to just go, okay, just make it purple. Make sure there's kind of like a crime of the century, fake blood splatter look to it. Go
Yeah.
wild, go crazy, just wow me.
I'm fascinated with the idea of an Angie Moon bass. I think
I
your
really
name
would
would
love that.
I think your name would look great on a headstock.
You know what would be cool? I wonder if you could make an electric sitar bass. What if we did that?
Okay, this actually exists, and this will be a fun thing to let people know and you.
That's a thing.
One of the people that I have communicated regularly with is named Jim Washburn, and he's a guitar journo, and he also knows how to build them and fiddle with them. And he made a bass sitar for Jonathan Richman. I've got a picture of it.
Modern Lovers.
Yes.
My God, that's so cool.
He sent me a picture of it. I don't know.
Sitar.
He
Okay,
knows
that's
where
gotta be. I gotta get one.
he knows where it's been used.
Oh, there's Owen. Owen's just waving
hi.
at me.
Yeah, he told me he made it for him and that he's used it on some recordings. I'll have to ask him again what about that
I
bass
gotta get
sitar.
someone to make me one of those. If there's somebody in England that can make me that,
All
I need
you
to get in contact with them because I
a
need
a bass sitar.
with a flying V. It's gotta look like a flying V.
All you need is a lipstick pickup. Okay, you need for a sitar, an electric sitar. You need a lipstick pickup and a buzz bridge.
Oh,
That's
very
all you
cool.
need.
Oh, I think I need to let my husband in. That's what. I'm back.
Angie let her husband in. What, the door was locked and he needed to be let in?
Yeah.
Open the door.
Like,
Well, now that he's home, I'm going to let you go. Did I miss? I mean, my listeners need to go read Angie's blog about this subject and all the other subjects that he's written about. And this is just going to be not especially academic, but just a fun talk about endomania. And I was all primed for it. I told her I'm going to dress right.
oh, you
By
look
the
great.
way, I've changed my location of where I'm filming from. I usually film over there in the corner, and I decided that I wanted to sit cross-legged today. And this is actually pretty comfortable. And I want to show you something before we leave. One reason why Nat Daniel and Vinnie Bell wanted to capture the zeitgeist of the electric sitar is that they used it on ads and movie soundtracks and everything else. And they had already done this before in 1961 with this one. It's called a Belzouki. And it's spelled Bellzouki. And you'll love this. Have you ever seen the movie Never on Sunday?
No.
It's coming after your heart. It was an international phenomenon, and I believe it won an Academy Award for the soundtrack, and everybody wanted to sound like Grease after the movie. It was an international movie. It was filmed in Greece, and it's called Never on Sunday. Did you look it up on your screen?
Yeah, I looked
Never
at the
on
Belzouki
Sunday.
and I was like, I think that's a Greek instrument because I remember seeing them when I was in Greece.
Yes.
Yeah.
I actually meant to ask you about music when you were in Greece, and I forgot to.
I don't know
If
that
you
much
saw
about
any
Greek
music-
music. No, I don't know that
Yeah, I
much
don't
about
either.
it. It does sound nice.
you
I do know that.
Did you see any performed though? Like, did you go into a restaurant and they had music performance?
No, but when I went to Athens, I remember I saw this group busking and they were called Hermaphrodite's Child or something like that.
Okay.
And they were playing Beatles covers, I think. And I was like, they were really good. Like, there's definitely a lot of love for rock music in Greece. That's where Aphrodite's Child are from.
Okay.
And they have a great album called 666. I really like that one. Demis Roussos, Vangelis were two of the famous members from that group.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know anything about Greek music either. I know it when I hear it, because it sounds like Grease.
Mm-hmm.
But so Never on Sunday, I think it came out in like 60, and it's an international success story. Just like so many other foreign films, it becomes a not a cultural phenomenon. Everybody loves it, and everybody wants to sound like Grease. And so Vinnie Bell and Nat Daniel got together to try to make a guitar that would sound like a Greek bouzouki. So when Vinnie Bell went on sessions, and they said, we want you to sound like Grease, he would have an electric guitar that would sound like that. And it is the first electric 12 string. And it was made by
Wow.
Dan Electro. I'm going to hold this up if you can see it. The reason why they called it the Bellzuki is that Vinnie Bell helped design it. That's why it's Bell Zuki. They patterned it after a Greek bouzouki, and a Greek bouzouki does have the double strings that, make
Mm-hmm.
that organic. Oh, I've got this tuning thing in here. And I don't know how to play it, but it was
Mm-hmm.
all about Greece. So,
Wow. Like, I mean, Greece does influence a lot of things, like our language and things like that. And I remember I have a couple little references to Greece in the next book of Trials of the Century, so there's definitely going to be a bit of that in chapter 1.
yeah.
And then chapter 2, obviously, the whole Curse of the Billy Goat in Chicago, that was a Greek man who was kind of behind that. So William Cyanus, he owned the Billy Goat Tavern.
Yeah.
Was it the Billy Goat Tavern that he owned? Yeah. And then that
Yeah,
whole
it's Billy.
thing, oh, them Cubs, they'll never win a World Series. And then I remember in 2016 when the Cubs won the World Series, my great aunt was really happy because she didn't think that she would live to see the Cubs win a World Series. And she was, how old? 94 when that
Yeah.
happened.
That tavern is the one that was made famous and, by the, wasn't it?
SNL.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
although I think it was based on something else, but yeah, it definitely had Greek influence in that. Yep.
Yeah. 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 So they set a mind to develop the electric sitar because they'd already done this before. They're like, we need an electric guitar that sounds like Grease. And then in 65, 66, they applied for the patent in 67. So they were working on it before. But around that time, they're like, we need an electric guitar that sounds like India. You see, they did it with this in 61. They started producing these in 61. And that's why I like to educate people. First, electric 12 string, and there's a lot of confusion whether it's this or that, but this is the first electric 12 string right here. And it was
Wow.
also a teardrop shape that was later used by
Vox.
Vox.
Yep.
But they are this was in production in 1961. That's
That
Greece.
looks so ahead of its time.
Yeah,
Like, that's the thing. Like, just like the Flying V, very ahead of its time. That was a
yeah.
1958 thing. And something that I love telling people is the whole tarot card motif. Gibson patented this in January 1958. And in January 1958, that's when Joe Meek went to that tarot card reading that predicted the death of Buddy Holly on February 3rd.
Man, it all
It's
goes
so weird
together.
just hearing these connections, and there's even more of them in the second Crime of the Century book, which is Trials of the Century. I don't want to spoil it too much, but I am just shocked at how many parallels there are between different celebrities in all the different chapters. It's like, what is going on here? And I love just that whole idea of a narrative thread that, okay, something that happened so long ago kind of just affects everything. And it makes me think of the butterfly effect and things like that.
Yeah. Resonation.
I love that sound.
Um, I know you worked so hard and your husband is home now. I took 2 hours of your very precious
I
time
enjoyed every bit of it.
again.
I loved it. Had a great time. It's
We have
always
so
a
much
pleasure to be on
fun
the
talking.
podcast.
I try to even keep all these podcasts to an hour because I know people are limited, but this one's just so fun. It's just so fun talking to you about music and clothes and everything else. And you really know your stuff.
Oh, thank you.
And I've learned a lot from you, and we're learning together.
Absolutely. It's all
Yes,
like, if it's not a learning day, what is it?
exactly. That this thing where people can't be, where people got to know everything must be a joyless existence because every day I like to get up. The birds are chirping, and I crack the books open, crack open my phone. I want to learn something new. It's my reason in life, and I've learned a lot from you. I learned a lot from that blog post. So I'm going to put a link to the things that to Angie's writing in there, and everybody needs to go and learn about Beyond the Sitar, Indian influences and classic rock. And this episode has been called The Sitar Goes Electric. And I can't thank you enough for helping me with it.
Oh, my pleasure. I had a lot of fun talking about, rock and the 60s and fashion, just everything. It's so much fun to talk to you.
Thank you. It's fun to talk to you too. And we're going to do it in person one day. I'm going to manifest it.
That would be my dream.
Hey, when you and your family get to Chicago, I'm going to come up there and hang out with y'all.
Oh, I hope I can make it to Chicago. I just miss my hometown. I haven't been back since I left, and that was nearly a decade ago.
Well, I'm sure it misses you too because you're a fine citizen. And I want to have you on again so we can talk about Chicago music.
Oh my God. I'm just really happy to talk about it. And I know there's definitely one story from that will be in a Crime of the Century book. And it's one of the most heartbreaking stories in popular music history. And that's Sam Cooke. That one breaks my heart every time I think about it.
My Mississippi brother, I've told people for years that he is my number one. Sam Cooke is a great migration story. He's from Sunflower County, Mississippi, and I love him. And that is one of the most tragic stories that ever happened was the premature loss of somebody like Sam Cooke, man. He was
like when I asked my dad, which musician who died young do you wonder the most about? And he said, no question about it, it's Sam Cooke.
Yeah. He's my guy. Have you ever listened to the song Sitting in the Sun? And he's talking about counting his money. Do you have it's kind of a deep cut. Sitting in the sun, counting my money. I don't know who wrote it. But anyway, I told you I think that money is my middle name. And that's why it was my dad's middle name. And that's why I like that this electric sitar is the color of money, green.
Amazing.
But we'll have to have you back on and we'll talk about Sam Cooke all day long.
Yeah, and Curtis Mayfield. I got to talk about Curtis Mayfield as well.
Yeah. I believe he lived in Atlanta when I lived in Atlanta before he died. Did he live in Atlanta for a while, Curtis Mayfield?
I don't know. Another one that I would love to talk about, they're not quite Chicago, but they are from the same state, is Cheap Trick. I remember recently reviewing a book about Cheap Trick, and that's definitely one I want to talk about because when I went to Japan, I was like, okay, I got to see the Budokan because that's where they played famously, and I got to at least see it, even if I'm not going in there. I want to see it.
Yeah. Oh, we got so many episodes to do in the future, and I'm going to let you go. I hope you have a wonderful weekend and Friday night. I enjoyed watching your trip from Greece from afar, and thank you for telling me all about it.
Oh, it was a blast. Yeah, this is definitely the start of a great weekend, and always a pleasure to speak to you, Emily.
Fly high. We're saying goodbye from the Lipstick Pickup Podcast with Angie Moon today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
If you hear excellent tone and the sound of birds chirping, it means you've made it through an entire episode of the Lipstick Pickup Podcast. You're as free as a bird now, but I hope you'll join me again soon. Comments or questions? I can be reached at emily@thelipstickpickup.com.